there was a lot of news this week.
Mm-hmm.
So we will get into it. And it was obviously the kind of expected, there have been teases that James Gunn and Peter Safran were going to be making their announcements of what their slate is for DC movies and TV in the next few years. And it's looking like this is the 2024 to 2026 kind of thing. And they're calling this Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters. So obviously the best thing to compare that to would be like a phase of Marvel. This is like their phase 1. Although it's not necessarily an origin phase, because they're kind of like jumping in where all these characters are either established. Well, not all of them, but some of the big ones are already established. So we're just going to go through the projects here that they've announced, and we'll talk about them a little bit. It mixes movies and TV. It's not like all the movies are first and the TV second. I don't know why they're in this order, but we'll just go in the order they're in the article.
So did you watch the video from Gunn, or did you just read the article?
I just read the article.
All right, so I watched the video from Gunn, and it was very informative in that the stuff that he added his commentary to these. So
well, I've got there's some quotes from him for each of the
gotcha.
Because there's not descriptions per se, but it's just like quotes from what he said about them.
Okay.
So, all right. So first up, animated TV show called Creature Commandos, which is definitely, because one of the things they were saying getting into this is that they want to use the big sort of like tentpole characters, which is basically the Trinity,
right,
to prop up some weirder and smaller characters, and you can kind of see that in both the movie side and the TV side. There's some bigger names in both, and then there's some weirder names. But Creature Commandos is obviously one of the weirder, smaller properties. Apparently this has been written by Gunn, and he's finished writing it. Creatures Commandos is comprised of military superhumans, including a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, which I assume is just the same Frankenstein as Agent of Shade.
That's what I would assume.
Yeah. And a Gargan. Don't forget the Gargan.
Yes.
It's very important. And one of the characters in this is Weasel, which was in Gunn's Suicide Squad movies. So there's a little bit of this definitely feels like a very James Gunn thing. A group of weird characters. I feel like his sense of humor will work well with this group.
Yeah, it's very B-movie-ish, right?
Yeah.
When I think of his early work, right before Guardians, it always had a B-movie quality to it. The image that they have here also has G.I. Robot and someone that looks like Dr. Phosphorus. So seems like it's going to be a varied cast from our usual Creature Commandos. But he also had mentioned in his video that what they want is they want a synergy between all these projects, and so the voice cast will also be the live action cast when these guys show up somewhere in live action.
Should they show up?
Yes, should they show up?
Should they show up? So you've got that, right? So that's first up. I don't have too much to say about that. It's an animated show. It feels like it'll probably be like maybe a lot of fun, but I imagine probably not as essential as some of the other things, because they are saying this is Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, this slate, and that would suggest that there is a plan, and they say there's an overall story they're telling, and they even point out one of the things that's more important to the overall story later on. So we'll get into that. Next up, another show is Waller. This one was kind of already known about. This is a spin-off of Peacemaker. The interesting thing about this one, and I talked to Connor about all this in the almost cancelled TV news yesterday, so I'm repeating a lot of what I said there.
There you go.
But Waller is kind of like this weird thing where, because James Gunn's writing a Superman movie, more than that in a second, he's not got time to do Peacemaker Season 2 just now, which has been greenlit. So Waller's kind of like, he's setting that up as kind of like the in-between. It's like so that he can do something related to Peacemaker before he's ready to have the time for Peacemaker. And the funny thing is that probably got renewed before he got this gig. So it's like, when will he have the time for Peacemaker Season 2? Who knows? But yeah, so obviously this is going to be Viola Davis. It's going to, that's not really even much. It's Waller. She's probably going to be controlling some supervillains, is my guess, because that tends to be her thing.
I mean, probably a hint of Suicide Squad in here, right?
I would imagine so.
But it's also being written by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, the HBO series, and then Jeremy Carver, who was the creator of Doom Patrol.
Oh, I'm glad you knew that, because No, I saw the name there, and I saw it said Watchmen, but when I read it yesterday, I wasn't sure if it meant the show or the movie.
Yeah. It was the show. I don't know if she was a showrunner or one of the main writers, but yeah.
She wasn't the main showrunner, because the main showrunner was Damon Lindelof.
That's right. So definitely one of the lead writers on there, and for as much as I enjoyed Watchmen, a show that I did not think I was going to enjoy.
Oh, it was very good. It was very good. Out of the movies, well, and again, it's jumping between them. This is the first movie. Is Superman Legacy, and this is quoted as really the start of this DCU. It's already announced with Gunn writing, no director attached. Gunn could end up directing it. What I'll be interested to hear from like Gunn writing this is that I don't necessarily associate Gunn's writing style with necessarily being applicable to Superman, but I will say this. This quote here is really interesting. It's not an origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, in the American way. His kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. That last part in particular is by far the most interesting thing they could have said about making a Superman movie. It is shocking to me that we have not had a Superman story either in movie or really TV. Right, and I've not watched season 2 of Superman and Lois, so maybe it did something with it, but I doubt it. That deals with the fact that Superman is this earnest, goody two shoes, and tries to be that in a world that is cynical and cold, and he's trying to bring some light to it.
Right.
There's potential there.
Yeah. As a Superman fan, I like everything that I hear there. It seems like Gunn really does understand the character, because that's what he's leading with, is the fact that he kind of is old-fashioned, and that's why he, to me, that's what makes Superman work, is that he's not the cynical guy, and that's what always rubbed me the wrong way in the other movies, is, he was just so cold and, like, distant, and I didn't feel the warmth to Superman. Here, just with that, the whole, he's kindness in a world that thinks kindness is old-fashioned. Superman persists. That's what I like.
Yeah. So, yeah, promising. What they did say there's going to be some inspiration from All-Star Superman, which I'm going to assume is not necessarily so much plot, but more so just tone, feel, kind of the vibe it's going for.
I mean, it is called Legacy, which makes me wonder why you would start with that. Like, is this his Kryptonian legacy? Is this his Earth legacy? Is it being, the last son or whatever? Or is it like with All-Star? Are these like kind of like the last acts or whatever of Superman?
Well, definitely not, because they opened with this as a young Superman.
Oh, is that what this says?
Yeah, it's a young Superman.
Oh. Well, then it's definitely not that.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying it's definitely not just doing the plot of All-Star Superman.
Of course.
So there you go. That's the Superman Legacy movie. Over at TV next is Lanterns, HBO Max show. Obviously, it's a Green Lantern show. Our vision for this is True Detective, Saffron said. It's going to be Hal and Jon Stewart. It is a terrestrial show. And it plays a big part in the main story that they're telling across the film and TV shared universe. Which I was theorizing yesterday might mean that whatever, Hal and John are investigating, that it might set up whoever the main villain is for the eventual, Chapter 2's big Justice League team-up movie or whatever it is.
Right. It makes me think that it's not Darkseid, but I also don't have any other options.
It could be. Yeah, it could be Darkseid still, because if they're investigating stuff, maybe it's the influence of some dark apocalypse energy on some people on Earth or something like that.
Right.
But given Darkseid was kind of teased in the last movies, and obviously, the less we sort of think about them, the better for a while. I imagine maybe they'll go a different route.
Yeah, which I like, because that means there's some surprise at play here. And just thinking about Green Lanterns or Green Lantern itself, it made me think of Blackest Night or whatever, of like Necron, a big heavy like that, because in a term like gods and monsters, like I don't think they would actually do a Blackest Night,
That said, though, the name Gods and Monsters does make me think they might go Darkseid.
Yeah, me too.
Because he's a new god.
Yeah, so
can't discount
kind
that.
of monstrous. Yeah. So, but I like hearing about this with the True Detective vein, meaning that it's going to be a detective story, and it's going to lean on them being cops.
Yeah, I also wonder.
Like.
I also wonder if that comparison is also maybe a suggestion they're going to play with the structure of it, and maybe it'll jump around timeline wise or something like that. I don't think it'll go as dark tone wise as True Detective, just because it's a superhero show. But
yeah.
That's just my thought.
And they did say it's going to feature Hal and John, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get both of them, and I'm sure we'll get some cameos from other Lanterns that we all like. Like I can't imagine not seeing one of the Guardians at one point in some form. Or Salak, at least his voice. So,
yeah, I wonder if they'll be sort of standoffish with that, since it's based on Earth and it's based with them doing detective stuff and it wants to be fairly grounded. I could almost see not seeing another single Green Lantern or a Guardian until maybe the very end, when it's like, okay, we're going to go back to report. Here's your tease for maybe the movie that's going to feature all the crazy stuff that you get with Green Lantern or something.
I could. Well, and also True Detective was kind of those two guys doing stuff on their own too, so that checks out with John and Al, right? That's kind of every story that we read with them is them going against the Guardians' wishes and doing things their own way. So
yeah, so you got that, and then another movie again is The Authority. So this is one of the the edgier, weirder picks for one of these movies. Yeah. So these are Wildstorm characters. And they're incorporating them. They're kind of like a different take on the Justice League. What I think's interesting about this decision to have these is kind of like the narrative purpose for it. Because they're telling this big story that there's supposedly they've got a plan, which I do appreciate that they said, hey, Lanterns is an important backbone to this overall plan. It feels like it is thought out, at least just from a paper read. I mean, we'll see how it feels when it actually comes out. But I'm optimistic about caring about this new universe when it all gets going, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But my thinking with The Authority is that, in the same vein that I was saying that Lanterns might set up the villain or something for like later on in the big grand universe, do you think they've got The Authority because they're going to maybe fight and fail against something, and that's why we need a Justice League, is because the Authority couldn't take something out? I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. I'm not that familiar with The Authority. Like every time I jump into Wildstorm stuff, I learn something new. So this is kind of a blind spot for me. But one of the quotes that he said was, there are white hats, black hats, and gray hats. So meaning not everything is good guy versus bad guy. So this makes me think that maybe The Authority are that in between. We'll see what the in between looks like before the Justice League to see what they're kind of up against.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so this has got Apollo, Midnighter, the Engineer, and Jerome Thorndike. Now, I don't know if this is a list of confirmed characters for the movie, or if this is just them listing the non-characters from the comic.
Who those characters are.
But it's not a ridiculous assumption to think that it'll probably just be them, maybe some others. Back to TV, Paradise Lost is a HBO Max show, and it's going to be a Games of Thrones-ish story on Themyscira, and it'll be set before the birth of Diana, and it'll be all the politicking and stuff on Themyscira, which sounds interesting.
I would read a comic of that if that's what Historia is. I'm missing out because that sounds interesting.
I think what's interesting about this, and the only slight asterisk I have in all this announcement, is that it feels like they're still trying to maybe tailor it slightly to the old movies, in that maybe they're still going to somehow retcon Flash's movie into being the change thing that
a flashpoint, if you will,
that creates the new universe. And honestly, I the Flash movie has me really sad, because I'm not looking forward to it. It doesn't really feel like a Flash movie. It feels like this weird concocted multiverse thing just to do everything but an actual Flash movie. And Connor's optimistic. When I talked to him about this yesterday, he was like, well, he's not optimistic about the movie, but he's optimistic that if it doesn't do that well, but they still think Flash is popular, it could end up with us getting a Wally Flash at some point in the new universe, which would be great. My skepticism or my sadness comes from the fact that I think that it's kind of tainting the character, between just the production problems, the actors' nonsense, and all that stuff. I'm just worried that the Flash as a character is just going to be avoided for a long time, and that's a shame.
I don't know, because a lot of people still think of Grant Gustin Flash, and that hasn't done too much damage, I would think. So that's still out there at least.
Yeah, but that show's not good though. It's actually actively bad most of the time.
Still, it's not the same issues that this production had, which I'm still surprised it's coming out. Like, I'm shocked.
I just mean, like, the chances of them doing another Flash movie, unless this one does gangbusters, which will.
But even just we know that they're going to do the TV thing, so maybe we'll get like a miniseries style, Wally thing that sets up Wally that would lead into whatever a phase two.
Maybe I'm just saying the entire like climate around it just feels iffy, and I don't like any of it. Right, and the reason why I'm bringing that up with Paradise Lost is that, like, this is being left fairly open in the sense that it could be the previous Wonder Woman that this is like set before, but it also could just be a new Wonder Woman. And given the fact that there's going to be a new Superman and a new Batman, I think you kind of need to have a new Wonder Woman as well, or it's going to feel really weird. Yeah,
no offense to Gal or anything, just fresh. We got rid of Henry.
And honestly, like, my opinion, this has been the same for a while. Fresh slate.
Yeah.
Eradicate it all, fresh slate. Yeah. It does make the next couple of movies that are coming out feel worthless, like Aquaman 2 and Shazam 2 and whatever, but I don't care. Like, fresh slate. Like, this previous universe is just a mess and is tainted, and there's very little good in it, quite frankly. So
they and they're already kind of hinting, I was reading things, they're already hinting that Momoa wants to be Lobo. And he's already Aquaman in the universe, so like I feel like his days of Aquaman are, behind him. He's like already looking at the new thing, so
and that dude does. And his Aquaman was not good, so I'm okay with that.
I like him.
He's not Aquaman though. He's just Jason Momoa.
Yes, I know. I was gonna say, and then I got sidetracked. So, what was I gonna say? All right, move on to the next thing. It might come back to me. Momoa, Aquaman. Yeah, go on to the next one. It'll come back.
Okay, well, next up, we're back to a movie, The Brave and the Bold. So this is an interesting one, and it's obviously a cool title, but this is actually going to be the first glimpse of this universe's Batman. It's going to be a Batman and Damian story at its center. Grant Morrison's run, specifically Batman and Son, has been referenced, which I do like, that they're specifically saying, hey, this is the story that we're kind of adapting, potentially. Probably won't be exactly the same, because it's like presumably a younger part of the universe, younger Batman, all the rest of it. But they're doing Damian. That's kind of cool. And there's probably going to be other characters because it's called Brave and the Bold, and that tends to be how it rolls. So this is also going to feature other members of the extended Bat family, just because we feel that they've been left out of the Batman stories in the theatre for far too long. That's very good, and I hope it doesn't skip any of them. Not that I think you can realistically give time to all of the Bat family members in a movie, because there's too many of them, but I just hope that the doors comfortably open so that any of them can and could exist as things go on. But
and the fact that Gunn described Damian as his favorite Robin, and that he's a little son of a bitch, in quotes, tells me he understands Damian, right? So
I'm actively excited for like a proper Bat family, and I think we're still getting the Batman Part 2, Matt Reeves movie, which I'm also excited for. But this one, since it's in the universe with everything else, this is the one that can have Mr. Freeze and Clayface and all the more fantastical and supernatural Batman villains.
Don't forget Ninja Man-Bats, all right? We can have that in this one.
We can, yes. So, by all means, this is a great idea. Batman Part 2, by the way, has been dated for October 3rd, 2025 as well. So we got that on the way too.
And he name-checked Elseworlds. Like, this is going to get Elseworlds branding. The Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman, which I like.
That's interesting that they're going to try and use that phrasing in movies to say, here's what's in the universe and here's just what's separate and standalone. I wonder if Joker 2 also gets saddled with an Elseworlds tag.
I think when he brought this up, I think that's one of the other ones. Because there's a different name to Joker 2. I forget what the subtitle of it is, but he threw that in with the Elseworlds 2, which this is something that I've always thought they should do. I feel like now that multiverses are pop culture and people can understand the differences in different things, like, why not brand things Elseworlds? Like, they could have done this. I feel they could have done this a couple of years ago for things, but
but they didn't really. They couldn't have done because they hadn't really established what the main universe was, and it was all over the place. So
True.
You can only do this once you've actually got a firm universe in place and a plan for what is and what isn't part of it. But yeah, so very intrigued by this movie. You know, they're saying this. Yeah, I think at the top it gave like an actual time frame for what all these were meant to be coming out in. It was something like 2025 to 2027. Yeah, 2025 to 2027. That's the exact time frame.
Yeah, because Superman's supposed to be out in July of 2025, and then Batman will be out in October of 2025. It says.
Yeah, so which, you know, makes sense. I think if this all hits within about a 2-year period, it will feel probably quite concise, which is good. Next is a TV show, and it is one that probably made Matt's eyes pop out of his head, and that was Booster Gold, which the description here reads, it's a TV series about a loser from the future. That's all you need to know.
He is. John Michael Carr is not a good guy. That's why he comes to the past to make it big, you know?
I don't know if Gunn's going to end up writing this, but I could see Gunn's sense of humor working for Booster Gold quite easily.
Easy. Just also the fact that there seemed to be a positive buzz from the social media side of things, where here I was thinking I was on an island being a Booster Gold fan, and come to find out there's a lot of Booster Gold fans out there. I just never knew. So that makes me excited that the show will have some buzz when it comes out, and you know,
hey, it may elevate him. He might become this good, not like a serious superhero tentpole, because he's too much of a comedy side character for that. But he might become like a very, cult.
He is kind of that Paul Rudd Ant-Man kind of vibe, right?
Oh yeah, I can see that comparison.
A lighter tone, more fun, you know. So I'm super excited. So that it's already going to be my favorite TV show. I'm already putting it out there. You know,
I don't know. We were compared to Homelander yesterday, and just in the sense that he's like, I can see Anthony Starr playing Booster. He shouldn't, because he's already Homelander and it's too similar.
But that vibe where he thinks, there's a different of how he perceives himself versus how he actually is.
He's Homelander with hijinks.
Yeah.
That's my description of Booster Gold.
And he's not going to laser people's chests, because that's not one of Booster's things. You know.
Hey, you say what you want, but laser my effing tits is still one of the best lines of dialogue in TV history.
Yep. But yeah, and then Skeets and just the inner balance between them, I'm sure that'll have Gunn's sense of humor throughout too. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah. Well, we don't know if he's writing it though. He may not be writing it. Well,
no, but like what you said, with his sense of humor, like that is prime for that vibe. You know, the balance between them.
And the next one's kind of a surprise to me is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, based on Tom King's comic. Now, obviously, we like that comic a lot, so this is great news. I like that this is based on an actual thing. I'm pleasantly surprised at this, because I felt like, because there's a Supergirl character in this Flash movie that's coming up, and again, I have nothing against the actor or like putting the character in a Flash movie, but it feels like just one extra kind of like character too many in what should be a Flash movie. I'm actually really pleased that this is a fresh Supergirl movie that's given her a chance to really stand alone. I would not have expected a Supergirl project in the same slate as Superman, but obviously Superman's going to be the story of Superman fitting on Earth. We know that Supergirl's story is true grit in space. This is going to be a space adventure. So not only is this going to give Supergirl a spotlight to hopefully become an even bigger deal and be up there with Wonder Woman as far as like the general public go for female DC characters, but you're also giving us a very different type of movie to Superman. You're giving us a very distinct thing, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is a hit and people like it, that Supergirl will become more associated with doing stuff in space than doing stuff on Earth, like a second Superman. Even though I like when she does that too, but I can see the appeal of trying to make that distinction and say, no, Supergirl is going to go around the universe, she's going to do different things, whatever. A lot of potential in that. And the trade sold out on Amazon within a day of this announcement. So it's got some buzz going.
So very, very excited for that. Because, that book had its, it was a roller coaster of emotions. So if we're going to get that in a movie, I'm just thinking some of the vignettes that we got, like, if they're going to adapt it all the way, and just seeing that on the big screen is going to rock. Like, I'm very excited. Yeah,
so that's really cool. And then Also, something of a second or third chance is that they're going to do a Swamp Thing movie. And the best news about this is actually news that came out separately afterwards about who might be directing it, because James Mangold's attached to direct this after Indiana Jones 5. He, of course, did Logan, as well as other things in the past that have been very good. So he's a great choice. There's a direct references to this being based on Alan Moore's run, which is also very exciting.
Which is very, I'm going to have to visit that now, because that's been a blind spot for me for a while. But
oh, sure, it's very good.
That one's very horror, like, rooted, right?
I said this yesterday on the TV news with Connor, but, like, I'll say it now. If they can capture the tone that book has in movie form, I will love this, and it'll maybe be my favorite of the entire slate. Like, if they can capture what that book felt like, I will love this.
I'm gonna have to track these down now, because I'm outside of like Watchmen and whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, I haven't read a lot of Alan Moore. So this might be the time to remedy that. So
yeah, all thing I'll say is the first issue, if you're reading the collections, he kind of came in and finished like an arc that was already going. So the first issue is kind of a weird last chapter or something else you haven't read. So don't put too much stock in that first one, and then read after that.
Yeah, for sure. Because I do love the different version like of Swamp Thing that we've gotten. Like the Scott Snyder book, I really liked the places that it went. But I'm a real big fan of the Charles Soule. That essentially was him doing superhero stuff within the Green. Big fan of that run.
I mean, I think Ram V stuff did have a lot of influence from the Alan Moore side. So, and
I love that as well. Like I've so far in all my times of reading Swamp Thing, I've never not looked forward to Swamp Thing. Right, like it's always been a book that I'm. It's
so different from like most superhero stuff as well. Like I think that's one thing I do like about this slate is you've got a couple
it's varied.
Yeah, it's very varied. You got a couple of tentpole things. You got a Superman movie and a Batman and Robin movie. Effectively, they're not calling it that, but that's effectively what it seems to be.
Yeah.
But you also have a space adventure with Supergirl. You've got a more sort of like, Swamp Thing's this kind of like horror, like sad monster story. Authority's probably going to be more of a cynical, satirical take on superhero stuff. And even the TV shows, likewise, you've got your detective Green Lantern show. You've also got your sort of darker side Waller story about her doing villainous stuff. And then you've got, your Game of Thrones, Wonder Woman story. And then you've got your comedy Booster Gold. It's a very varied set of things.
Kind of like comics themselves, right? Like, that's what we've always wanted. At least I say we. But there's different comics out there, and they shouldn't all have the same tone. They should be able to be different things.
Oh, I really hope these have different tones. I will be so disappointed if, like, this Swamp Thing movie feels the same tone as the Brave and the Bold movie. They should feel different. One of the things that I think got really boring for me with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just how it is the same tone pretty much constantly.
Yeah. For sure.
So I've fallen off that universe. The current DC movies, I'm not excited for any of the ones coming out. Other than I guess Batman Part 2 because I like the first one. But this slate, on paper, I like the sound of most of it, and I hope that it lands. I really do.
And I was already in on the Swamp Thing horror movie, and then they attached Mangold's name, and like I'm already excited. Like I love Logan. Logan is one of my favorite, superhero movies. I would say even movies up there. Like that movie hit all the right spots for me. So if he's gonna bring that kind of quality to a Swamp Thing movie, then let's go. Also, he made me care about car racing in Ford versus Ferrari. I don't care anything about cars. So like he did the impossible there. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, the TV show from a few years ago was really, really bad, but I will say Swamp Thing in it looked perfect. The actual design of him looked great. So if they keep that look, and then
who starred in that as Swamp Thing?
Oh God, I have no idea.
It wasn't a big name.
I don't remember if it was a big. I don't think it was, but I could be wrong.
Because this was the one that was originally on.
It was DC Infinite, and then it aired on CW, but it only got one season though.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking this up.
Yeah.
Wow, Virginia Madsen was in it.
Yeah, she was in it. It's one of these things where it feels like some of these projects are like genuine like second or third chances for characters, or in case of Superman, I guess it's like even more than that. But you know, it's characters who haven't really either gotten the right due. Like the Supergirl show obviously had some bright spots, but you know, kind of went downhill as it was going. Swamp Thing's had some failed attempts in the past. Like I kind of like that they're making serious efforts, seemingly, with some characters. And even the idea, like obviously Batman's been well served, and there's been great Batman movies. But finally trying to do a proper Batman with a Bat family and Robin and stuff like that does feel like, okay, we're going to actually try and do the things that haven't been done yet. We're going to try and do the parts of DC Comics that you love in the comics, but no one's really tried to capture successfully on screen yet. And that has me optimistic, and I hope these projects work out, and I hope they're good. So,
for sure.
Optimistic. I'm optimistic. You know, it could all crash and burn. They could all end up sucking. But I am optimistic at this juncture.